And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chancellor of the University of California, Berkeley.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Not supposed to hiss.
Hiss.
On behalf of the entire Berkeley community,
Blah, blah, blah,
I want to
blah,
welcome
blah,
everyone here tonight to this important lecture.
Here we go.
I'm incredibly moved and flattered.
Oh, the pleasure's mine. Let's get down on matters. What should we discuss tonight?
Palestine and the universality of human rights.
What did Israel do to the Palestinian nation?
Forced transfer of population, torture, starvation, humiliation, discrimination, and selective punishment or straight-out assassination.
I'm not testing your qualification, but which one is at the root of Israel's foundation?
Land expropriation,
And which one is blatantly a violation of the United Nations?
extrajudicial political assassination.
I just don't buy it. We got the UN, who even
The
tried
Security
it?
Council has been expressing varying degrees of disquiet.
But we gotta fight for.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight.
We gotta fight for.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight. There could be no
We gotta
arguing
fight
about
for.
that. Human rights.
Or
There's
else.
simply no end in sight.
But first, we gotta call it.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight. There could be no argument. I want to affirm no power is exempt from accusation and judgment if that government practices cruel and unusual punishment. The occupation has been the stock and trade of every Israeli government.
So what's their intent? What they trying to cement?
Illegal settlements.
See, the settlers are trying to take our land, but we'll stand and fight, cause we gotta fight for.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight.
We gotta fight for.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight.
There are.
No excuses.
For.
So many injustices and abuses.
It gets me so mad, I just wanna kill. It's beyond our control. Ed, how do you
History
feel?
is therefore the product of human will. Nothing transcendental.
Nothing stays still, so we can make change if we organize and mobilize. We gotta start by opening our own eyes. We gotta start by opening our very own eyes. We gotta fight for.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight.
We gotta fight for.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight. There could be no
gotta
arguing
fight
about
for.
that. Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight.
But first, we gotta call it.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight. There could be no arguing. We must resort to the tools of education.
But in that department, man, we
The
lose.
exact opposite is true.
You're probably right, my lenses.
So skewed.
We're indeed flocking to the university. The effects are lovely.
Palestinians have gone from the status of non-person to that of a universally acknowledged national collectivity, i.e. a people.
But we're still not equal when Zionists are talking about a sequel to.
1948,
Is that a fake? Cause it's US made. How much did they gave?
$135 billion in economic aid.
So basically they paid for each massacre, so we must remember.
Hana, Jenin, Sabra and Shatila.
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 We gotta fight for.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight.
We gotta fight for.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight. There could be no
gotta
arguing
fight
about
for.
that. Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight.
But first, we gotta call it.
Human rights.
Or else.
There's simply no end in sight. There could be no arguing about that.